All right, let's get right into it. We're about to pull back the curtain on one of the most powerful and, well, most of the time, invisible social rules that quietly runs our lives.
You know that feeling, right, where you get this weird, almost physical pull to agree to something, even when every part of you wants to say no? Well, that feeling has a name and a pretty wild story behind it.
And it all kind of starts with this simple, almost goofy experiment. Get this. A university professor mails out a bunch of his family's Christmas cards, but to a list of people he'd never ever met. Complete strangers.
And the results? It was just bizarre. His mailbox was flooded with holiday cards coming back to him. And here's the crazy part. Most of these people had never even bothered to ask who he was. They just got a card, and it was like a switch flipped in their brain.
So that's the big question, isn't it? Why on earth would you feel the need to send a Christmas card to someone you don't know? Well, the answer is this deep, ancient code that's basically written into our social DNA.
And that code, it's called the rule of reciprocity. You can think of it as the invisible social glue that holds so much of our world together.
The rule itself is pretty simple. We feel this incredibly strong obligation to give back what another person has given to us. A favor for a favor, a gift for a gift. I mean, just think about the phrase we use all the time, much obliged. It's literally become another way of saying thank you, because that feeling of being in debt is so fundamental to us.
And look, this isn't some new thing we just came up with. The archaeologist Richard Leakey argues that this very system is what makes us human. It's the whole reason we could start cooperating in the first place.
This web of indebtedness, as he calls it, meant one person could give away food or help someone, confident that it wasn't truly lost, that the favor would be returned down the line. It's really the bedrock of trade, of teamwork. You could say it's the foundation of society itself.
But just how strong is this feeling of obligation? Well, as you're about to see, it can be so powerful that it can overcome just about anything, even time, distance, and whether you even like the other person.
This is one of the most incredible examples out there. In 1985, Ethiopia was in the grips of a horrific famine and economic collapse, and yet they sent $5,000 to Mexico City to help with earthquake relief. Why? Because 50 years earlier, Mexico had sent aid to them. A 50-year-old debt was honored across decades and through a national crisis. That's how powerful this is.
Okay, let's look at another experiment, a bit more down to earth. A researcher had his assistant, a guy named Joe, offer a research subject a Coke, completely unasked for, before he tried to sell them some raffle tickets. And the results just perfectly show how this rule works. Sure, if people liked Joe, they bought a few more tickets. But if Joe gave them a free Coke, sales doubled. And here's the kicker. Even for the people who said they disliked Joe, getting that Coke still made them buy twice as many tickets. The obligation to repay him for the soda completely crushed their personal feelings about him. The gift was more powerful than liking. So, of course, whenever you have a psychological button this powerful, you're going to have people who figure out how to push it on purpose, to weaponize it for their own benefit. If you've ever been in an airport, you might have seen the Hare Krishna Society's old fundraising tactic. It was a masterclass in this. They'd push a flower into your hand, an uninvited gift. You try to say no, to give it back, but they insist. It's our gift to you, and boom. The trap is sprung, the rule is triggered. And only then, once you're feeling indebted, do they ask for a donation. You're now in a psychological corner. What's even crazier is that this rule can make us agree to totally unfair trades. That feeling of being indebted is so uncomfortable that we'll often give back way more than we got, just to get rid of the feeling. There was a story of a woman who let a guy she barely knew borrow her brand new car because he'd given her a jump start a month before. You can guess what happened. He completely totaled it. But this can get even more sophisticated. There's a more subtle, more advanced version of this, a technique used by professional negotiators, salespeople, and even political operatives. So picture this scene. A Boy Scout comes to your door and asks if you want to buy a $5 ticket to the circus. You politely say no. Okay, he says, well, if you don't want a ticket, how about buying one of our $1 chocolate bars? A lot of us would say yes, even if we don't want the chocolate. Why? Because he made a concession. He retreated from his big request to a small one. And the rule of reciprocity pressures us to make a concession in return by saying yes. Researchers put this to the test. They asked students to do something huge, be a youth counselor for 2 hours a week for 2 years. Literally 100% of them said no.
But when the researchers followed up that refusal with a much smaller request, okay, well, how about just chaperoning them on one trip to the zoo? The number of people who agreed tripled compared to when they just asked for the zoo trip up front.
Now, this isn't just about selling candy or getting zoo chaperones. This exact psychological tactic played a key role in one of the most infamous political scandals of all time, Watergate.
It started when G. Gordon Liddy proposed his first plan. It was an absolutely insane $1 million plan for political espionage that included things like mugging squads and blackmail operations. It was so over the top, of course, it was rejected out of hand.
So Liddy made his first concession. He came back with a second, scaled down, $500,000 plan. That one was also rejected.
Finally, Liddy made his last retreat. He presented a bare-bones $250,000 plan. Now, this plan was still a terrible criminal idea, but after rejecting his two much larger proposals, it somehow seemed reasonable. The committee felt obligated to meet his concessions with a concession of their own. They approved it, and the rest is history.
So, after hearing all that, how do you protect yourself? How do you say no without just turning into a hermit who rejects every nice thing someone tries to do for you? The secret isn't to reject the initial favor. It's to redefine it.
The strategy is actually pretty straightforward. Go ahead and accept the offer, the free sample, the flower, whatever it is. But then just take a half second to assess its intent. If you realize it's not a real gift but a sales tactic, a trick to make you feel indebted, then you just perform a quick mental judo move. You relabel it in your head for what it is, a sales device. And just like that, the rule is neutralized. You're off the hook.
Because at its heart, the rule of reciprocity is all about fairness. It says that a favor should be met with a favor. But it absolutely does not say that a sales trick should be met with a favor. The second you recognize an attempt to exploit you, you are completely free from any obligation.
So now that you can see the code, now that you know the rules of the game, the only question is, where are you going to spot it next? In the grocery store? At work? In your next negotiation? It's out there, everywhere.